Hey, how did you sleep last night? If you're a fan of scary stories to fall asleep to, you've found the right place. Welcome to Midnight Lullaby. A like and a subscribe means a lot to this channel, and make sure we will meet again. Also, let me know in the comments where in the world you're listening from. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let the story carry you into dreams. Story 1. I've walked through Riverside Park hundreds of times, but never at night. During the day, it's pleasant enough. Old oak trees, winding paths, a small pond where ducks gather and children throw bread, despite the signs asking them not to. It's the kind of urban green space that every city has, unremarkable except to the people who use it daily, who know its rhythms and seasons and quiet corners. But tonight, I'm walking through at 11:37 p.m. because I made a stupid mistake. I stayed late at the library, lost in research for a project I should have started weeks ago. And when I finally looked up, the buses had stopped running. My apartment is on the other side of the park, a 20-minute walk if I take the long route around, or 10 minutes if I cut straight through. The rational choice is obvious. Take the long route, stick to lit streets. Don't take unnecessary risks. But I'm tired, my feet hurt, and the park looks peaceful enough from the entrance. The moon is nearly full, bright enough to see by. The paths are paved and well maintained, and I've never believed in the stories. Every park has stories. Riverside Park has the headless hunter. According to local legend, a man was killed here in the 1950s. Decapitated in some gruesome accident or murder, the details varying depending on who's telling the story. Some say he was a groundskeeper who got caught in his own equipment. Others claim he was murdered by a jealous rival, his head taken as a trophy and never found. A few insist he killed himself, though how one decapitates oneself is never satisfactorily explained. Whatever the origin, the legend is consistent in one detail. His ghost walks the park at night, hunting for his lost head, attacking anyone who gets lost on the paths after dark. It's the kind of story teenagers tell each other to justify daring each other to come here at night. The kind of urban legend that never quite dies, because it's too good a story to let go. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in bad lighting, overactive imaginations, and the human tendency to find patterns in randomness. So when I enter the park, I do so with confidence, following the main path that cuts through the center, staying in the moonlight, keeping my phone in my hand with its flashlight ready if needed. The park is quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of daytime, when you can still hear distant traffic and children playing, but the deeper quiet of late night, when the city itself seems to hold its breath. My footsteps sound loud on the pavement, echoing slightly off the trees. Somewhere an owl calls, a sound I've never heard here during the day. I'm about halfway through, passing the pond, when I first feel that I'm being watched. It's nothing specific at first. Just a prickle at the back of my neck, a sense that I'm not alone. I tell myself it's nerves, the power of suggestion, the natural unease of being in an unfamiliar environment at night. But the feeling persists and grows stronger. I walk faster, my eyes scanning the shadows between the trees. The path ahead curves around a small hill covered in old oaks. During the day, children roll down that hill, laughing and dizzy. Now it's just a dark shape blocking part of the moonlight. That's where I see him. A figure standing at the top of the hill, silhouetted against the sky. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looks like a long coat or cloak. He's perfectly still, and even from this distance, perhaps 50 yards, I can tell he's watching me. Or would be watching me if he had a head. The moonlight is bright enough to see clearly, and what I see makes my breath catch. The figure's shoulders rise to a neck, but there's nothing above that. No head, no face, just an ending where there should be more. The coat or cloak flutters slightly in a breeze I don't feel on the path. I stop walking. My hand tightens around my phone. This isn't real, I tell myself. It's a trick of the light, a strangely shaped tree trunk, my own mind filling in details from the stories I've heard. People don't walk around without heads. It's not possible, but the figure moves. It turns, its headless form rotating to face me more directly. Then it begins to descend the hill, moving with purpose and direction, coming toward me. Every instinct screams at me to run, but I force myself to think rationally. Running in a dark park is how people get hurt. They trip on roots, fall on uneven ground, panic themselves into injury. Better to keep calm. To walk quickly but carefully back to the entrance, to get out of the park and call someone if necessary. I turn around and start back the way I came, walking fast but not running. Behind me, I hear nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no sound at all. But when I glance over my shoulder, the figure is closer, much closer. It's moved perhaps 20 yards in the few seconds since I turned around, covering ground impossibly fast for something that appeared to be walking. Now I do run. I can't help it. Rational thought dissolves in the face of something so fundamentally wrong, so impossible yet undeniably present. My feet pound on the pavement as I race back toward the entrance. My breath harsh in my ears, my phone clutched uselessly in my hand. The path that seemed so straight on the way and now twists and turns unexpectedly. I don't remember it being this long. The trees press closer, their shadows deeper, and the moonlight that seemed so bright before now feels inadequate, leaving pools of darkness everywhere. I risk another glance back. The figure is still following, still moving impossibly fast without appearing to run. Its motion is smooth, gliding, as if it's not constrained by the same physical rules that govern my own desperate flight. I round a bend and see something that stops me in my tracks. The path ahead splits into 3 directions, and I don't remember this junction. I came in on a straight path. There were no forks, no choices to make. But now there are 3 paths, each leading into darkness, and I have no idea which one leads to the entrance. Behind me, I sense more than see the figure growing closer. I choose the middle path randomly and run, my lungs burning, my legs protesting. The path narrows, becomes less maintained, with roots breaking through the pavement. This can't be right. This isn't the main path, but I can't go back now. The trees close in overhead, blocking more of the moonlight. I fumble with my phone, trying to turn on the flashlight, but my hands are shaking too much. The phone slips from my fingers and falls, hitting the pavement with a crack that probably means a broken screen. I bend to grab it, but a sound stops me. Breathing. Heavy. A rasping breathing, close enough that I should be able to feel breath on my neck. But the figure has no head. No mouth or nose or lungs. It shouldn't be able to breathe. Yet I hear it. The unmistakable and terrifying, right behind me. I abandon my phone and run into the darkness without it, my hands stretched in front of me to avoid running into trees. Branches catch at my clothes and hair. Something, a root or a rock, nearly trips me, and I barely catch myself. I burst out of the trees into a clearing I don't recognize. In the center is a structure, an old stone gazebo or monument, something I've never seen despite walking this park dozens of times. Moonlight illuminates it clearly, showing carved words on the stone that I'm too far away to read. I run toward it, thinking maybe I can shelter there. Maybe I can defend myself better in an open space rather than among the trees. But as I get closer, I see something that makes me slow down. There are names carved in the stone. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, covering every surface of the monument. And below each name, a date. I move closer, my fear momentarily overcome by curiosity. James Morton, 1973. David Blackwood, 1989. Sarah Chen, 2003. The names go on and on, spanning decades. The most recent date I can see is from last year. All different names, all different years, but all sharing this stone monument I've never seen before. A memorial, I think. For people who died in the park, perhaps. Accidents or heart attacks. Lost souls. The voice comes from behind me, and I spin around. The headless figure is there, standing at the edge of the clearing. Its form solid and undeniable in the moonlight. But now there's something different. Where its head should be, there's a faint glow, a shimmer in the air like heat waves rising from pavement. And in that shimmer, I see fragments of faces. Not one face, but many overlapping and shifting, appearing and disappearing like channels changing on a television. Young and old, male and female, all different, but all sharing an expression of profound loss. Lost, the voice says again, and I realize it's coming from that shimmer, from those shifting faces. All lost in the dark, all hunting for the way home. I press my back against the monument, my heart hammering. What are you? The figure doesn't move closer, but the shimmer of faces becomes more distinct. I can see them clearly now, dozens of people, all looking out at me with eyes that hold too much knowledge, too much sorrow. We're the lost, the voice says, and now I can hear that it's not one voice, but many, speaking in rough unison. What came to the park and couldn't find our way out. We walked in circles until the dawn found us changed. Now we walk still, hunting for others, trying to remember the way home. I look at the names on the monument again, understanding dawning with cold certainty. These aren't people who died in the park. These are people who got lost here, who walked the paths at night and never found the exit. People who became like this figure. Headless hunters trapped in eternal searching. I'm not lost, I say, trying to sound confident. I know the way out. I just took a wrong turn. The shimmer of faces shifts, and something like pity crosses those overlapping features. They all say that. They all believe they know the way. But the park changes at night. The paths twist. The exits hide. No one finds their way out once they're truly lost. But I'm not lost. I'm shouting now, fear making me loud. I came from the library. I entered at the main gate. I just need to go back the way I came. Which way did you come? The question is simple, but when I try to answer, I realize I can't. I've turned around so many times, run through so many twisting paths, that I have no idea which direction the entrance is. The park that seems so small and familiar during the day has become vast and unknowable in the darkness. I'm not sure, but I have my phone. I can use GPS. Your phone is in the woods. The many voices remind me. You dropped it when you ran. I did. I remember the crack of the screen hitting pavement, the way I left it behind in my panic. Without it, I have no GPS, no way to call for help, no light to guide me. Then I'll wait until morning, I say desperately. The sun will rise in a few hours. In daylight, I'll be able to find my way. The figure tilts where its head should be, as if considering this. The faces in the shimmer shift more rapidly, showing emotion I can't quite read. Others have tried that, the voices say. They hide, they wait, they watch for dawn. But dawn doesn't come for the lost. The night stretches, becomes eternal. Minutes feel like hours, hours like days. They wait, and the sun never rises until finally they begin to walk again, searching for an exit they'll never find. That's not possible, I whisper, but even as I say it, I'm not sure. How long have I been in the park? It felt like minutes, but it could have been hours. I have no way to tell without my phone, and the moon hasn't moved at all in the sky, as if it's fixed there, eternal and unchanging. Time is different for the lost. The voices confirm. The park holds them in its moment, in its darkness. They become part of it, walking its paths forever, hunting for the way home. I sink down against the monument, my legs finally giving out. This can't be happening. I'm a rational person. I don't believe in curses or magic, or parks that trap people in eternal night. But everything I see and hear contradicts my beliefs, and I'm running out of ways to explain it away. Is there any way out? I ask quietly. Any way to break free. The figure is silent for a long moment. The faces in the shimmer slow their movement, settling into a configuration that looks almost like a single face. An old face, weathered and wise and infinitely sad. Only one way. The voices say softer now, almost gentle. Only one escape that we know of. But it requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? A choice. The lost can only leave if someone else takes their place. One person finds the exit, but another must remain behind, must become lost in their stead. The park demands its walkers, its hunters in the dark. It will not release all of us. I think about the names on the monument. Decades of lost souls, stretching back to the 1950s. All trapped here, all walking these paths, all hunting endlessly for home. The weight of that tragedy settles on me. So if I want to leave, someone else has to stay? Yes. Or you remain, and we all continue our hunting. The choice is yours. I look at the headless figure, at the shimmer of faces where its head should be. I think about becoming like that, losing myself piece by piece, until I'm just another voice in the chorus of the lost. The idea terrifies me more than anything else that's happened tonight. But I also think about condemning someone else to this fate. About deliberately leading someone into the park, about choosing my freedom over their innocent life. How could I live with that choice? How could I walk free knowing someone else walks in my place? There has to be another way, I say. There has to be. Perhaps, the voices say. But we have not found it in all our years of searching. Perhaps you will be the one who does. Or perhaps you will join us, and together we will continue to look. The figure extends what should be an arm, though in the darkness and moonlight, it's hard to tell where the coat ends and flesh begins. An invitation, or a welcoming, or a warning. I stand up slowly, my mind racing. I'm not ready to give up. I'm not ready to accept that there's no escape, no way out that doesn't require sacrifice. There must be something I'm missing, some detail or clue or possibility. I look at the monument again, at all those names and dates. There's a pattern there, I'm sure of it. The dates aren't random. They cluster in certain years, with gaps between. And the names, some of them feel familiar, like I've heard them before in different contexts. These people, I say slowly. The ones on the monument, what happened to them? In the outside world, I mean. Were they found? Were they declared dead? The shimmer of faces shifts again, showing something like surprise. Some were found. The voices say, their bodies discovered in the park, apparently dead from exposure or accident. Others simply vanished, never seen again. Why do you ask? Because if some were found dead, that means they escaped somehow. Their bodies made it out, even if they didn't. There must be a way to break the connection, to step back into normal time and space. I'm thinking out loud now, working through the logic. The park traps you in a moment, you said, holds you in its darkness. But physical objects still exist normally. My phone fell and broke. The monument is real and solid. So there must be a boundary between the trap time and normal time. A place where they meet. The figure doesn't respond, but I can sense attention, interest, something I haven't felt from it before. And if there's a boundary, there might be a way to cross it. Not by sacrifice, but by understanding. By finding the exact point where the trap weakens, where normal time bleeds through. Many have tried, the voices say, but there's less certainty in them now. Many have searched for such a weakness. None have succeeded. Because they were searching randomly, I say, growing more confident. But what if there's a pattern? What if the weakness appears at specific times, specific locations? The dates on this monument, they cluster around certain years. What if those were years when the boundary was thinner, when escape was possible? I'm pacing now, energized by the possibility. And the people who were found dead, their bodies made it through. Maybe they pushed too hard, tried to force their way across and died in the attempt. But it means they got close. They found the boundary. The headless figure tilts again, and the shimmer of faces coalesces into a single expression. Hope, I realize. After decades or longer of endless searching, I'm offering them hope. Where would such a boundary be? The voices ask. I think about the park, about its geography and history. I think about the entrance I used, about the path I walked, about the pond and the hill and the trees. And I remember something from my research earlier today, not related to my project, but a stray fact I'd encountered while browsing local history. The stream, I say suddenly. There's a stream that runs through the park, feeding the pond. It was here before the park, before the city. It's the oldest thing in this place, following a course carved over thousands of years. If anywhere is going to have a boundary between times, it would be there. Moving water doesn't trap. It flows, it changes. It refuses to stay in any one moment. The figure stands perfectly still for a long moment. Then, without a word, it turns and begins walking. Not toward me, but toward a dark line of trees that must mark where the stream runs through the park. I follow. My fear replaced by curiosity and desperate hope. We walk through the darkness, the headless figure leading the way with certainty it hasn't shown before. The trees open up, and I hear before I see the gentle burble of running water. The stream is narrow here, perhaps 6 feet across, flowing over rocks and around roots. Moonlight glints off its surface, and I can see how it divides the park, a line of movement through stillness, of change through trap time. There, the voices say, and the figure points to a spot where the stream curves sharply, creating a small whirlpool around a half-submerged log. The boundary, we can feel it. The way time moves differently there. I approach the stream carefully, stopping at its edge. Looking at the water, I can see something strange. The movement isn't quite right. It flows but also doesn't, each ripple captured and released in a rhythm that's just slightly off from normal. If I step into the stream there, I say slowly, will I cross the boundary? Will I return to normal time? We don't know, the voices admit. None of us have dared to try. The water frightens us. We are lost in stillness, and water is always moving, always changing. It feels like dissolution, like the end of what we are. I look at the headless figure, at the shimmer of desperate faces. Come with me, I say. If it works, if I can cross the boundary, maybe you can too. Maybe we can all escape. And if it doesn't work, then at least we tried. At least we searched for an answer instead of just walking in circles. I step into the stream. The water is shockingly cold, colder than any stream should be in autumn. It rises to my knees, then my thighs as I wade toward the whirlpool. Behind me, I hear nothing. And I don't know if the figure is following or if it's chosen to remain in its familiar nightmare. I reach the whirlpool, the place where the boundary feels thinnest, The water pulls at me gently, trying to draw me in. I take a breath and step into the center of it. Everything changes. Sound rushes back. Traffic from the nearby streets. Wind in the trees. The normal sounds of a city at night. The moonlight seems brighter, the darkness less oppressive. And when I look at my phone, somehow back in my hand, unbroken. The time reads 11:52 p.m. Only 15 minutes since I entered the park. I turn around, looking for the headless figure, hoping to see it transformed back into normal people, freed from their curse. But the bank behind me is empty. The park looks normal, unremarkable, just an ordinary urban green space at night. Did I imagine it all? Was it some kind of waking dream, triggered by exhaustion and urban legends? The rational explanation offers itself readily, easily believed. But my clothes are soaked through, and there's mud on my shoes from wading in the stream. And in my hand, somehow, is a small stone from the monument, one of the carved names pressed against my palm. James Morton, 1956. I stand in the stream, water flowing around my legs, holding this impossible proof. The stone is real, solid, undeniable, which means everything else was real too. The headless figure, the lost souls, the trapped time, all of it happened, and I left them behind. The thought makes me feel sick. I found the way out, crossed the boundary, escaped back into normal time, but they didn't follow me. Whether they couldn't or wouldn't, I don't know. Maybe the water truly did frighten them too much. Maybe the dissolution they feared was real, and stepping into the stream would have ended them completely rather than freed them. Or maybe they chose to stay. Maybe after so long trapped in the park's darkness, they no longer knew how to exist anywhere else. I wade out of the stream and sit on the bank, my legs shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. The park around me looks innocent now, familiar. I can see the path I originally took, clearly visible in the moonlight. The exit is perhaps 5 minutes' walk from here. So close. I was never as lost as I thought, or perhaps the stream brought me back to where I started. I look at the stone in my hand again. James Morton. The first name on the monument, the oldest date. I wonder who he was, what brought him to the park that night in 1956. Did he know about the legends even then, or was he the first? Was there a monument before him, with other names, or did it begin with his loss? I make a decision. Tomorrow, in daylight, I'll research these names. I'll find out who they were, what happened to them, whether anyone is still looking for them. I'll document what I experienced, even knowing no one will believe me. And I'll try to understand if there's anything I can do for the souls still trapped in that dark moment, still walking those endless paths. But tonight, I need to get home. I need to be safe and warm and surrounded by normal things that obey normal rules. I stand up, pocketing the stone, and start walking toward the exit. The path is straight and clear, exactly as it should be. My feet carry me forward steadily, no more twisting routes or impossible forks. Within minutes, I see the park gates ahead, open and welcoming. I'm almost there when I hear it, a whisper, carried on the wind, in many voices speaking as one. Thank you for trying. I turn around, looking back into the park. For just a moment, I think I see a shimmer at the edge of the trees, a gathering of forms that might be people or might be shadows. Then the moonlight shifts, and there's nothing there. Just trees and darkness and the ordinary night. I walk through the gates and into the normal world. The street beyond is quiet but clearly real. Cars parked at meters, streetlights casting pools of yellow light, a 24-hour convenience store glowing on the corner. Everything exactly as it should be. My apartment is a 10-minute walk. And I cover the distance quickly, eager to be inside, to lock the door between me and the park and everything that happened there. My key fumbles in the lock. My hands are still shaking, but I manage to get inside. I lock the door, slide the chain, check the windows even though I'm on the third floor. Only then do I let myself fully feel the fear I've been holding back. I sink onto my couch and shake, tears streaming down my face for reasons I can't quite name. Relief at escaping. Guilt at leaving them behind. Confusion about what was real and what wasn't. Grief for all those lost souls trapped in an endless moment, hunting for a home they'll never find. Eventually, the shaking stops. I make myself shower, washing away the stream water and mud, changing into dry clothes. The stone from the monument sits on my coffee table, still there, still real. I pick it up and study it more carefully. The carving is old, weathered by time, but still readable. And now that I'm looking closely, I notice something I missed before. There are words on the other side, tiny letters carved in a different hand. Found at Stream 2003. Tell them we tried. Sarah Chen, one of the names on the monument. She found the stream too. She discovered the boundary, maybe even crossed it briefly. But she left this message, and that means she went back, or was pulled back, or chose to return. My hands tighten around the stone. She tried to tell someone, tried to leave evidence of what happened. But who would believe a carved stone found in a park? Who would take it seriously? I think about my own experience, how easily I could dismiss it as exhaustion or imagination or a strange dream. How the rational explanations line up so neatly, requiring only that I ignore the stone, the wet clothes, the 15 minutes that felt like hours. It would be easy to convince myself it didn't happen. To go back to my normal life, to avoid the park, to let the memory fade into uncertainty. That's probably what most people would do, what I should do. But Sarah Chen left a message. She wanted people to know. And the voices thanked me for trying, which means something I did mattered, even if I couldn't free them. I spend the rest of the night at my laptop, researching. James Morton was a real person. A Korean War veteran who disappeared in 1956 while walking home from his night shift at a factory. His body was found a week later in Riverside Park, apparently dead from exposure, though the coroner noted the body's condition was unusual in ways that weren't specified in the public records. Lisa Wang, 1973. A college student who vanished after studying late at the library. Found dead in the park 2 days later. Again, the coroner's report mentions anomalies. David Blackwood, 1989. A jogger who went for his usual evening run and never came home. Body discovered by the pond. Cause of death listed as undetermined. The pattern continues through all the names I can remember from the monument. All real people. All disappeared while in or near the park at night. All found dead days or weeks later with mysterious circumstances surrounding their deaths. But Sarah Chen's case is different. She disappeared in 2003 but was never found. She's still listed as missing, her case still technically open. Which means if she left that message on the stone, if she carved those words, she was still alive when she did it. Still trapped in the park's dark moment, still walking among the lost. Unless she finally found a way out. Unless the message was her goodbye before she escaped, leaving the stone as the only proof of what she endured. I want to believe that. I want to believe some of them made it, found the boundary and crossed it and returned to their lives. But the evidence suggests otherwise. The evidence suggests that the park takes people and doesn't let go. Not fully, not ever. As dawn begins to lighten my windows, I make another decision. I'm going to tell someone. Not the police. They'd never believe it. But there are people who study these things, who collect stories of unexplained phenomena, who might listen with open minds. I'll document everything I experienced, every detail I can remember. I'll photograph the stone with its dual messages. I'll create a record that maybe, someday, will help someone else who finds themselves lost in Riverside Park at night. And I'll go back, not into the trapped time. I'm not brave or foolish enough for that. But to the stream, to the boundary, to the place where normal time and trapped time meet. I'll leave messages there, carved into stones or written on paper sealed in plastic. Instructions for finding the boundary. Encouragement for the lost. Evidence that someone on the outside knows they exist and hasn't forgotten them. It's not much. It won't free them. But it's something. It's more than they have now. The sun rises fully, painting my apartment in warm morning light. Outside, the city wakes up. Traffic increasing, people heading to work, the normal rhythm of a normal day. Everything proceeding as if last night didn't happen, as if there isn't a pocket of trapped time just a few blocks away where lost souls walk in endless darkness. But I know. I carry their stone, their message, their whispered thanks, and I won't forget them. I fall asleep on my couch as the city comes alive around me, exhausted but determined. In my dreams, I walk through Riverside Park in bright sunshine, and it's just a park, innocent and pleasant. Children play, ducks swim, joggers pass by with friendly nods. But I know what hides beneath that sunny surface. I know what waits when darkness falls and the paths begin to twist. I know about the monument covered in names, about the headless hunter with its shimmer of desperate faces, about the boundary at the stream where time flows strangely. And I know that someday, someone else will enter that park at night. Someone else will get lost on the twisting paths and find themselves trapped in that eternal moment. When they do, maybe they'll find one of my messages. Maybe they'll know about the stream, about the boundary, about the possibility of escape. Maybe they'll make it out like I did. Or maybe they'll join the lost, adding another name to the monument, another face to the shimmer, another voice to the chorus that hunts through the darkness. The park doesn't care which. It's patient. It's been there longer than the city around it, longer than any of us. It will be there long after we're gone, waiting through seasons and years and decades. Waiting for night to fall and for someone to enter its paths and make a wrong turn. Waiting for the next lost soul to hunt. I wake in the afternoon, stiff and disoriented. For a moment, I think last night was indeed a dream. Then I see the stone on my coffee table, and I know it was real. All of it was real. I pick up the stone and hold it tight, feeling the carved letters press into my palm. A promise and a burden. A responsibility I didn't ask for but can't ignore. Outside, the day is bright and beautiful. Perfect weather for a walk in the park. But I won't go. Not today. Not in daylight when I can almost convince myself it's safe. I'll wait for night. I'll wait for the moon to rise and the shadows to deepen. And then I'll return to the stream with my messages and my warnings. I'll add my own carved words to Sarah Chen's, creating a trail of evidence for whoever comes next. Because they will come. Someone always does. The park makes sure of it. With its convenient location and well-maintained paths and innocent daytime appearance. It draws people in, makes them trust it, makes them think that cutting through at night is a reasonable choice. And then it changes. The paths twist, the exits hide, and time itself becomes a trap. But now there's a way out. A boundary at the stream where flowing water refuses to be captured in a single moment. It's not easy to find and not easy to cross, but it exists. That's more than the lost had before. That's what I'll tell them in my carved messages and sealed letters. That escape is possible. That they don't have to walk forever. That someone on the outside remembers them and is working to bring them home. It's not enough. It will never be enough to truly help them, but it's something. And sometimes, something is all we can offer to the lost souls who hunt in the dark, searching endlessly for a home they can no longer remember, wearing the faces of everyone who came before. Headless and eternal and patient, the park waits. The night will fall, and I will return to the boundary between moments, carrying stones and hope, and the weight of all those names. James Morton, Lisa Wang, David Blackwood, Sarah Chen, all the lost, all still walking, all still hunting in the dark. Story 2. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight when I boarded the midnight train to nowhere in particular. I say nowhere because I had stopped caring about destinations. The movement itself had become my purpose. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks, the only lullaby that could quiet my mind anymore. The platform was empty except for a single attendant who barely glanced at my ticket before waving me through. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. I pulled my coat tighter around myself and stepped into the first carriage. It was surprisingly empty for a Friday night, though I suppose midnight trains rarely attract crowds. A businessman dozed in one corner, his briefcase clutched to his chest like a child's teddy bear. An elderly woman knitted something formless and gray, her needles clicking in counterpoint to the train's rhythm. I nodded to neither of them and moved forward. Through the second carriage, empty. Through the third, a teenage couple sat entwined, whispering secrets only they could understand. Through the fourth, fifth, sixth. Each carriage progressively emptier, progressively quieter, until I reached the seventh. The door to the eighth carriage was different from the others. Where the previous doors had been bright aluminum with large windows, this one was old wood, painted a deep burgundy that had cracked and peeled with age. There was no window, just a small brass plate that read, "Private," in ornate script. I should have turned back then. But there's something about forbidden doors that calls to certain people, and I had always been one of them. I tried the handle. It turned easily, soundlessly, as if recently oiled. The eighth carriage was empty, not just of people, that I had expected, but empty of the usual train furniture as well. No seats lined the walls, no luggage racks overhead, no advertisements for resorts or medications. Just a long, narrow corridor with wooden floors that looked like they belonged in a Victorian mansion rather than a modern train. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, a pattern of roses that might have been red once, but had faded to the color of dried blood. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling at the far end, swaying gently with the train's movement. Its light was warm and yellow, creating more shadows than illumination. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click that somehow sounded final. I turned to reopen it, but the handle wouldn't turn. Locked from the outside, perhaps. No matter. There would be a door at the other end, leading to the ninth carriage. There always was. I began to walk. The wooden floor creaked under my feet, each step announcing my presence to the empty space. The wallpaper seemed to shift in my peripheral vision, the roses blooming and wilting in impossible cycles. I kept my eyes forward, focused on that swaying light bulb ahead. After what felt like too long, surely the carriage wasn't this long, I noticed something. Scratches on the floor, deep grooves in the wood, running parallel to the walls, as if something heavy had been dragged the length of the carriage. I followed them with my eyes and saw they led to dark stains that had seeped between the floorboards. The temperature dropped suddenly. My breath became visible, small clouds that dissipated slowly in the still air. The train's rhythm seemed to change, becoming irregular, almost hesitant, as if the engine itself was uncertain about continuing forward. I reached the halfway point, or what I thought was the halfway point, when I heard it. A soft sound, barely audible over the train's clatter. Breathing, not my own, coming from behind me. I turned slowly. The carriage stretched back the way I had come, but it looked different now. Longer. The wallpaper's roses were darker, the thorns more prominent. And at the far end, where the door should have been, there was only darkness. The kind of darkness that isn't just the absence of light, but a presence in itself, thick and watching. And in that darkness, something moved. I turned back and walked faster toward the light bulb, toward the door that must be there at the other end. My footsteps echoed strangely now, as if the carriage had grown larger, as if I was walking through a cathedral instead of a train car. The breathing behind me grew louder, not closer. It never seemed to get closer, but louder, more insistent. Multiple sources now. As if a crowd had gathered in the darkness behind me, all breathing in unison, all waiting. The light bulb swayed more violently, though there was no draft. Its yellow light flickered, and in that flickering, I saw them on the walls. Shadows, not cast by anything, not following the laws of light and geometry, but simply there, moving, reaching. I was running now, my footsteps thundering on the wooden floor, my breath coming in gasps. The door had to be close. The carriage couldn't be infinite. That was impossible. This was just a train, just a carriage, just... I reached the light bulb. Directly beneath it, I stopped. There was no door. The carriage ended in a solid wall of the same faded wallpaper. No exit. No way forward. I turned, pressing my back against the wall, and looked at the length of the carriage stretching away from me. It was darker now at the far end. The darkness was advancing, slowly but inevitably, like a tide coming in. And in that darkness, I could finally see them clearly. People. Dozens of them. Standing shoulder to shoulder, filling the width of the carriage. All facing me. All perfectly still. Their clothes spanned decades. Victorian dresses next to 1950s, suits next to modern jeans and T-shirts. Their faces were expressionless, but their eyes were all the same. Empty. Not just of emotion, but of anything that might have once been called human. They began to walk forward in perfect synchronization. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The wooden floor groaned under their collective weight. Their breathing was the only sound, that terrible unified respiration that seemed to fill the air itself. I hammered on the wall behind me, screaming now all composure abandoned. There had to be a way out. There had to be. The light bulb above me exploded in a shower of glass. Darkness rushed in like water filling a sinking ship. I felt hands, cold, so cold, touching my shoulders, my arms, my face. Not grabbing, just touching. Gentle, almost tender. And with each touch, I felt something draining away. Not blood, not warmth, but something more essential. Memory, perhaps. Identity. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Or perhaps the sound was simply absorbed by the darkness, added to the chorus of breathing that surrounded me. The last thing I remember clearly is a thought, razor sharp in its clarity. This had all happened before. I had been on this train before, had found this carriage before, had stood in this exact spot before, and I would again, and again, and again. When I opened my eyes, I was standing at the entrance to the 8th carriage. The old wooden door with its brass. Private, plate gleamed in the fluorescent light of the 7th car. My hand was on the handle. Behind me, the train was full of ordinary passengers going about their ordinary journeys. I released the handle and stepped back. The door seemed to regard me, patient and eternal. I turned and walked back through the 7th carriage, the 6th, the 5th. But something was wrong. Each carriage I passed through looked slightly different from how I remembered it. The businessman was still there, but his briefcase was a different color. The elderly woman was still knitting, but now it was something blue instead of gray. And when I reached the first carriage and stepped out onto the platform, I saw myself. Standing there, coat pulled tight, looking lost and tired, looking at the train with that expression of someone who had stopped caring about destinations. I tried to speak, to warn him, but my voice produced no sound. He walked past me as if I wasn't there, moving with purpose toward the train's entrance. I watched him bored. Watched him walk through the first carriage, the second, the third. I stood on the empty platform and watched until he reached the seventh carriage, until he saw the old wooden door, until his hand reached for the handle. And then I turned away, because I knew what came next. I knew because I remembered, and because when I looked down at my hands, they were translucent in the fluorescent light. When I looked at my reflection in the station's dark windows, I saw the same empty eyes I had seen in the eighth carriage. The rain continues to fall. The midnight train continues its journey, and on an empty platform, somewhere between destinations, something that was once me waits. Waits for the next person who will open that burgundy door. The next person who will walk that endless corridor. The next person who will join us in the breathing darkness. Because the eighth carriage is always empty, and it's always full. It depends on which side of the door you're standing on. The train whistle sounds in the distance. A lonely note that echoes through the empty station. I find myself walking back toward the platform's edge, toward the waiting train. My hand reaches for the door to the first carriage. I board the midnight train. I walk through the first carriage, the second, the third. I reach the seventh carriage and see the old wooden door. I should turn back. I know I should turn back, but there's something about forbidden doors that calls to certain people, and I have always been one of them. The handle turns easily, soundlessly, as if recently oiled. The eighth carriage is empty. Story 3. The bookshop had been closed for 15 years when I inherited it from my uncle. I remember it vaguely from childhood visits. A dusty, towering place that smelled of old paper and mysteries, where my uncle would let me explore the narrow aisles while he worked on his ledgers in the back office. Now it's mine, along with the apartment above it, and the considerable task of deciding what to do with thousands of books. I've been sorting through them for 3 weeks now, working in the evenings after my regular job. There's something meditative about it, pulling books from shelves, checking their condition, looking up their value online. Most are worthless, common editions of forgotten novels, but occasionally I find something interesting. A first edition, a signed copy, something that makes the work feel worthwhile. Tonight, I'm working on the back wall of the shop, the section my uncle called History and Biography. The shelf here is particularly tall, reaching almost to the ceiling, and particularly deep. The books are crammed in 2 or 3 rows deep, and pulling them out is like excavating layers of sediment, each revealing books older and more obscure than the last. I'm standing on the step ladder, working on the top shelf, when I pull out a heavy volume on the Napoleonic Wars and feel something shift behind the remaining books. Not the books themselves, but something behind them. A clicking sound, mechanical and deliberate. I pause, my hand still extended. Then I carefully pull out more books from that section. The shelf is deep enough that even removing the front row leaves another row behind. I keep pulling books until I've cleared the entire section of the top shelf. And that's when I see it. A small gap, barely visible in the dim light of my work lamp. The back panel of the bookshelf doesn't sit flush against the wall here. There's a space, perhaps an inch wide, running vertically down where two panels should meet but don't. I set down the books and run my hand along the gap. It's deliberate, I realize. Not a flaw in construction, but a feature. A seam. My heart begins to beat faster. I climb down the ladder and start pulling books from the lower shelves, working faster now, not caring about their organization or condition. I pile them on the floor in stacks, clearing shelf after shelf. The work takes 20 minutes, and by the end of it, I'm sweating despite the coolness of the shop. The entire central section of the bookshelf is now empty, and the seam is clearly visible, running from floor to ceiling. I press my hand against the panel on the right side of the seam and push. Nothing. I try pulling. Still nothing. I run my hands along the edges, looking for a latch or button or some mechanism of release. It's when I press on the left panel, about chest height, that I feel it gives slightly. Not a button, but a pressure plate. I press harder, and hear that clicking sound again, louder now. The entire section of the bookshelf swings inward, smooth and silent on well-oiled hinges, revealing a doorway. Behind it is darkness. I stand there for a long moment, my hand still on the panel, staring into the black. The rational part of my mind catalogs possibilities: a storage room, a former office, a space my uncle used for valuable books or private collections. But another part of me, something more primal, whispers warnings about hidden rooms and secrets kept in darkness. I retrieve my work lamp and shine it through the doorway. The beam reveals a small room, perhaps 10 feet square, with walls covered in something dark. I step through the doorway carefully, my footsteps echoing slightly in the enclosed space. The walls, I see now, are covered in paintings. Not hung paintings, but painted directly onto the wall surface, covering every inch from floor to ceiling. And they're all portraits. Faces staring out from the walls, dozens of them. Painted in a style that's both skilled and slightly off, as if the artist could capture technical accuracy, but not quite human warmth. I move the lamp slowly across the walls, studying them. The portraits are of different people, men, women, a few children. Different ages, different eras, judging by their clothing. Some look to be from the 1950s or 60s, others more recent. But they all share something. A quality in the eyes, a certain expression that I can't quite name. Not fear, exactly, but something close to it. Apprehension, perhaps, or resignation. Below each portrait is a name and a date, painted in small, precise letters. I move closer to read them. Catherine Mills, 1967. Robert John. Jennifer and Mark Patterson, 1981. David Kowalski, 1995. The list goes on. 27 portraits in all, spanning from 1952 to 2009, the year before my uncle closed the shop. I don't recognize any of the names, but something about them feels familiar, like a word on the tip of my tongue. I pull out my phone and search for the first name, adding our town's name to the query. The results make my skin prickle. Catherine Mills disappeared from our town in 1967. Last seen leaving the library on a Tuesday evening. Never found. I searched the second name. Robert Jung disappeared 1973. Last seen downtown, running errands on a Saturday afternoon. My hands are shaking now as I search the third name. The Pattersons. A married couple who vanished in 1981. Their car found abandoned at a highway rest stop. No sign of struggle. No indication of where they went. One by one, I search the names. One by one, the pattern confirms itself. Every person painted on these walls disappeared. Most from our town, a few from neighboring communities. All unsolved cases, all mysteries, and all painted here in a hidden room behind my uncle's bookshelf. I lower my phone, the light from the screen casting strange shadows across the painted faces. They seem to watch me, these missing people, their eyes following my movement with an intensity that makes the rational explanation my mind keeps trying to construct feel increasingly hollow. My uncle was a quiet man, scholarly. He ran a bookshop. He was kind to me as a child. The idea that he could be connected to these disappearances, that he could be responsible for them, seems impossible. But here they are, painted on his walls, hidden behind his books. I force myself to think logically. The paintings don't prove he hurt these people. Maybe he was interested in missing persons cases. Maybe this was some kind of memorial, or research project, or even an attempt to solve the mysteries himself. Maybe he knew something about these cases and documented it here, in private. But even as I think this, I notice details that trouble me. The paintings are too accurate, too lifelike. These aren't created from newspaper photos or fuzzy yearbook pictures. These are painted from life, or from very detailed reference material. The way the light catches in their eyes, the subtle asymmetries of their faces, the specific textures of their hair, these are observed details, not reconstructed ones. I move around the room, studying each portrait more carefully. Some of them have additional notations below the dates. Small words or phrases in the same precise handwriting. The collector, the dreamers, the scholar. The titles mean nothing to me, but they suggest some kind of categorization, some system of organization that my uncle applied to these people. I'm about to leave, to call the police, to report this disturbing discovery, when I notice one portrait that's different from the others. It's in the corner, partially hidden behind where the door swung open. I push the door further back and shine my light on it. It's a self-portrait. My uncle, painted with the same skilled precision as the others, wearing the cardigan and reading glasses I remember from childhood. Below it, his name and a date, Richard Morrison, 2009. But my uncle didn't disappear in 2009. He died in 2010 of a heart attack in the hospital with me and several other relatives present. His death was natural, documented, witnessed. So why did he paint himself among the disappeared? I stare at his painted face, and for just a moment, in the shifting light of my lamp, his expression seems to change. That same look all the others have. Apprehension, resignation. The look of someone who knows something terrible is coming, but can do nothing to stop it. I back out of the room slowly, unable to take my eyes off the walls, off all those watching faces. Once I'm back in the main shop, I want to close the hidden door, to seal away what I've found, but my hands won't cooperate. They're shaking too hard. Instead, I sit down on the floor among the piles of books, my back against a shelf, and try to think. I should call the police. This is clearly evidence of something, though I'm not sure what. But what will I tell them? That my deceased uncle had paintings of missing people in a secret room. That he included himself among them, even though he didn't disappear. And something else bothers me. If these people were victims, if my uncle was somehow responsible for their disappearances, why document it like this? Why create a gallery of the missing in a hidden room? It makes no sense as the action of a guilty man trying to hide his crimes. Unless it wasn't guilt he was hiding. I look at the stacks of books surrounding me. Years and years of accumulated knowledge and stories. I think about my uncle, his quiet life, his devotion to this shop. I remember something he told me once, when I was a child. Books are doorways. Everyone is a portal to somewhere else. You just have to know how to walk through. I thought it was a metaphor then. Now I'm not so sure. I stand up, brushing dust from my jeans, and approach the hidden room again. This time I study not the portraits but the room itself. The walls behind the paintings, the floor, the ceiling. The space feels slightly wrong dimensionally. From outside, measuring by eye, this room should be perhaps 8 feet deep. But standing inside, it feels larger. The back wall seems further away than it should be. I move to that back wall, reaching out to touch it. My hand meets surface, painted plaster, solid and real. But when I press harder, I feel the slightest give, like touching a membrane stretched across a frame. The portraits watch me. 27 missing people and my uncle. 28 doorways, perhaps, painted onto walls. Or 28 destinations. I pull my hand back, my mind racing with impossible thoughts. What if my uncle wasn't a killer, but a cartographer? What if these weren't victims, but travelers? What if books aren't the only doorways in this shop? The thought should be crazy. It is crazy. But standing here, in a hidden room full of the missing, in a shop that smells of old paper and mysteries, with my uncle's words echoing in my memory, it doesn't feel quite as impossible as it should. I think about the titles he wrote below some of the dates. The reader, the scholar. Not crimes, but identities. Not victims, but volunteers. People who wanted to go somewhere else. People who found, in my uncle's bookshop, a way to disappear. And my uncle, in 2009, painted himself among them. 1 year before his death, or what everyone thought was his death. I look at his portrait again, at that expression on his painted face. Not fear, I realize now. Not quite resignation either. It's something else. Something like peace. Like someone who has found what they've been looking for and is ready to take the final step. The hospital records said heart attack. Natural causes. But what if what they found in that hospital bed was just a shell? What if my uncle had already walked through one of his doorways, leaving behind only the biological remnants for us to bury and mourn? I know how this sounds. I know what anyone would think if I voiced these thoughts out loud. But I'm standing in a hidden room that shouldn't exist, looking at paintings of people who vanished without trace. And the conventional explanations keep falling apart in my hands. I back out of the room again and this time close the door. The bookshelf swings shut with a soft click, the seam barely visible, the secret sealed away once more. I could stack the books back, hide this discovery, forget what I've seen. Or I could try to understand it. I spend the rest of the night searching for more information about the missing people. Each case is real, well documented, and unsolved. Some of them generated national attention at the time. Police investigated thoroughly. Families still post on message boards, hoping for answers. But there's never been a single credible lead, never a body found, never evidence of foul play or escape. They simply walked out of their lives and into somewhere else. As dawn begins to light the shop windows, I sit surrounded by printouts and notes, my laptop battery dying, my eyes burning with exhaustion. I've learned the stories of the disappeared, but I'm no closer to understanding where they went or why my uncle documented them. Unless he helped them go. Unless this shop, with its towers of books and hidden rooms, was a way station for people who wanted to leave everything behind and step into a different story entirely. I look at the wall of books that hides the room, at the thousands of spines, each one a promise of other worlds, other lives. My uncle spent 50 years here among these doorways, learning their secrets, understanding their destinations, and eventually, when the time was right, taking that knowledge with him. The sun rises. The shop fills with dusty golden light, and I sit here, wondering if I should report what I've found or if I should do what my uncle seems to have intended. Keep the secret, protect the doorways. Maybe even help the next person who comes looking for a way out. Because that's what they were looking for, weren't they? All those people in the portraits. They were looking for something. And somehow, in this shop, with my uncle's help, they found it. I close my laptop. Make my decision. I'll keep the secret. I'll learn what my uncle knew. I'll understand how a bookshop can be more than a bookshop, how a door can lead somewhere other than another room. And maybe, someday, when my own time comes, I'll paint my own portrait on that wall among the other travelers and step through to wherever they've gone. The books wait silently, full of stories and secrets. And behind them, hidden in walls covered with watching faces, the doorways remain open for those who know how to find them. For those brave enough to disappear. Story 4. I've always been a night person. There's something about the quiet hours after midnight that feels more honest than the daytime. The world strips away its pretenses, becomes itself, dark and vast and indifferent. So when insomnia takes hold, as it has for the past week, I don't fight it. Instead, I walk. My apartment is on the 4th floor of an old building with large windows that face west, overlooking a courtyard shared by 4 adjacent buildings. During the day, a few trees, some benches, a small fountain that actually works. But at night, when the moon is full or nearly full, the courtyard transforms into something else entirely. The shadows become deeper, the spaces between things more pronounced. Everything is rendered in silver and black, like an old photograph come to life. Tonight, the moon is 3 days past full, still bright enough to cast strong shadows. I stand at my window, a cup of chamomile tea cooling in my hands, and watch the empty courtyard below. It's 2:47 a.m. The city is as quiet as it ever gets, which isn't truly quiet at all. There's always the distant hum of traffic, the occasional siren, the ambient sound of millions of people living their separate lives in close proximity. That's when I notice the shadow. It's cast across the courtyard pavement, long and distinct, stretching from somewhere near the fountain toward the eastern building. A human shadow, clearly. Head, shoulders, body, legs. Someone must be standing just out of my line of sight, perhaps in the covered walkway of the north building. I lean closer to the window, trying to see who's out there at this hour. But from this angle, I can't see into the walkway shadows, just their shadow cast in perfect detail by the moonlight. As I watch, the shadow moves. Not much, just a slight shift of weight, the way a person might move when standing still for too long. The head tilts, as if looking up at something. I wait for whoever it is to step into view, but they don't. The shadow remains, patient and still, for several minutes. Then it moves again, this time more deliberately. It grows longer, which means the person is walking toward the fountain, toward the center of the courtyard where I'll be able to see them. I watch the shadow approach, expecting any moment to see its owner emerge from the darkness of the walkway. The shadow grows longer, more defined. I can see details now. The shadow suggests someone wearing a long coat or robe, something that drapes loosely. The head is bare, the hair shoulder length or perhaps tied back. The shadow reaches the fountain. It stops there, cast across the low wall that surrounds the water feature. And still, I see no one. The walkway remains empty. The courtyard is deserted except for moonlight and shadows. I set down my tea and press closer to the window, my breath fogging the glass slightly. This makes no sense. The shadow is there, clear and undeniable, cast by bright moonlight. But there's no one to cast it. As I watch, the shadow moves again. It shifts position, turning as if looking around the courtyard. The movement is smooth, natural, exactly how a person's shadow would move if the person were turning. but the fountain area is empty, completely empty. My heart begins to beat faster. I tell myself there must be an explanation, some trick of the light, some reflective surface I'm not seeing, something that makes sense in a rational universe where shadows are cast by physical objects and nothing else. But the shadow disagrees. It moves again, this time walking away from the fountain toward my building. As it approaches, I can see it more clearly. The details are too specific to be a trick of light. I can see the suggestion of fingers at the end of the arms, the way the coat or robe moves, slightly as if stirred by a breeze, even the texture that suggests hair moving. And there is nothing casting it. I should step back from the window. I should close the curtains and return to bed and convince myself I'm overtired, that I'm seeing things, that this is just stress or exhaustion or too much caffeine. But I don't. I stay at the window, watching, as the shadow crosses the courtyard and disappears beneath my building, out of my line of sight. For a moment, everything is still. The courtyard is empty, shadowless, just pavement and fountain and moonlight. I start to breathe normally again, start to construct explanations in my mind. Then I see it again, this time on the wall of the eastern building, cast against the brick like a projection. The same shadow, the same figure in a long coat. It's moving along the wall, growing and shrinking slightly as it passes by windows and architectural features. It's climbing. That's what the movement suggests. The shadow is climbing the wall of the building, scaling it like someone moving up a ladder or climbing a rope, though there's no ladder, no rope, nothing but flat brick. I watch, mesmerized and horrified, as the shadow climbs higher. First floor, second floor, third floor. It moves steadily, purposefully, as if it knows exactly where it's going. It's heading toward a fourth floor window. Mrs. Chen's apartment, I think. She's an elderly woman who lives alone with her cats. I've met her a few times in the lobby, always polite, always asking about my day with genuine interest. The shadow reaches her window. It pauses there, cast against the brick beside her curtains. Then it seems to lean forward, pressing against the glass, as if looking in. I grab my phone, thinking I should call someone. The police. Building security, Mrs. Chen herself. But what would I say? There's a shadow outside your window, and there's nothing casting it. They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am crazy. As I'm trying to decide what to do, the shadow moves again. It's not climbing anymore. It's descending, moving down the wall with the same steady purpose. But this time, it's not heading back to the courtyard. It's heading toward my side of the building, toward my windows. I step back from the glass, my heart pounding now. The rational part of my mind is screaming that this isn't possible, that shadows need sources, that I need to wake up or get help, or do something other than stand here watching. But I am awake. I know I am. The floor is cold under my bare feet. The tea on the windowsill has left a ring of condensation. Everything is real and solid and undeniably present, except for the shadow that has no form. I can't see it now. It's somewhere on my building's wall, below my line of sight from the window. I imagine it climbing, growing closer, approaching my floor, my windows. I move away from the window, backing toward the center of my living room. The moonlight streams in, creating ordinary shadows from ordinary objects. The lamp, the bookshelf, the chair. Normal shadows, behaving as shadows should, staying where they're supposed to be. I wait, listening for sounds I know won't come. Shadows don't make sounds. They don't climb walls. They don't exist without something to cast them. But this one does. Minutes pass. 5 perhaps, or 10. I stand in the middle of my living room, watching my windows, waiting. Nothing happens. The courtyard outside remains empty and still. My own shadow, cast by the moonlight behind me, stretches across the floor in front of me, perfectly normal, perfectly explainable. Maybe it's gone. Maybe whatever that was has moved on to somewhere else, someone else. Maybe I'm safe. That's when I see it. Not outside, but inside. On my wall, just to the right of the window, where the moonlight doesn't quite reach. A shadow cast by nothing, darker than the surrounding darkness. The figure in the long coat, perfectly still, as if it's been waiting for me to notice it. It's inside my apartment. I don't scream. I want to, but my throat has closed, my breath trapped somewhere in my chest. I can only stare as the shadow remains motionless against my wall, a dark silhouette without a source. What do you want? I whisper, surprised I can speak at all. The shadow doesn't respond. It simply stands there, and I have the overwhelming sense that it's watching me, even though it has no eyes, no face, nothing but shape and darkness. I back toward the door, moving slowly, keeping my eyes on the shadow. It doesn't move. I reach behind me, fumbling for the doorknob. My hand finds it, turns it, and I'm about to pull the door open and run into the hallway when something stops me. The shadow has moved, not toward me, but toward the window. It's pressed against the glass now, as if looking out at the courtyard. And I realize something that makes my skin prickle. It's not looking out. It's looking at its reflection. The window is reflecting the room behind it, including me. And in that reflection, I can see myself standing by the door, pale and frightened. But I can also see the shadow. In the window's reflection, the shadow has formed. It's me. Not exactly me, but close enough. The same height, the same general build. But the figure in the reflection is wearing that long coat, and there's something different about the posture, the way it holds itself. It stands straighter than I do, more confident, or perhaps more resigned. I look down at myself. I'm wearing pajamas, not a coat. I look back at the reflection. The figure in the coat is still there, still clearly visible in the window's surface. Who are you? I ask, though I'm beginning to suspect I already know. The shadow in the reflection turns to face me. Its features are indistinct, but I can make out eyes, darker pools in an already dark face. A mouth that might be trying to speak. And then I understand. It's not a ghost. It's not a spirit or demon or supernatural entity. It's a shadow of time. A projection of what will be, cast backward into the present. In 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years, I'll stand in this window wearing a long coat, looking out at the courtyard. And somehow, that future moment is casting its shadow here, now visible in moonlight and reflections. The thought should be comforting. It means I survive, means there's a future version of me out there. But there was something in that shadow's posture, something in the way it moved through the courtyard and climbed the walls. It wasn't searching for something. It was saying goodbye, going from window to window, visiting places, Mrs. Chen's apartment, my building, looking at the world one last time before something happens, before something changes. The shadow in the reflection raises a hand, presses it against the glass from the inside. I can see the gesture clearly in the reflection, though when I look at the actual window, there's nothing. Just my own frightened face looking back at me. I move closer, drawn by something I don't understand. When I'm close enough, I raise my own hand and press it against the glass from my side. In the reflection, my hand and the shadow's hand align perfectly, palm to palm, separated by glass and time. The shadow leans closer, and in the reflection, I can almost see its face. My face, but older, tired. There are lines around the eyes that I don't have yet, a thinness to the cheeks that suggests weight loss or illness or long nights without sleep. What happens? I whisper to my future self. What are you trying to tell me? The figure in the reflection opens its mouth, and though I hear no sound, I can read the words on its lips. 3 words, repeated twice. Don't trust them. I lean closer. Don't trust who? But the shadow is fading. The moonlight is shifting as the moon continues its arc across the sky, and whatever strange condition allowed this glimpse across time is ending. The reflection grows fainter, less distinct. Soon there's nothing but my own face looking back at me, pale and confused in the pre-dawn darkness. I stand at the window for a long time after that, watching the courtyard, watching my reflection, waiting for the shadow to return. But it doesn't. The moonlight continues to fade as the sky begins to lighten in the east. By the time the sun rises, painting the courtyard in ordinary daylight, I've almost convinced myself it was a dream. Almost. But there's something on the window where I pressed my hand against the glass. A mark, like condensation, but in the shape of a palm. My palm, or the shadows. The same size, the same pattern of lines and creases. Except this handprint is on the outside of the glass. I live alone on the 4th floor. There's no balcony. No way to reach the outside of this window without climbing equipment and considerable risk. And yet the handprint is there, clear and undeniable in the early morning light. I touch it from the inside, aligning my hand with the print on the outside. They match perfectly. The next few days pass normally. I go to work, eat meals, talk to neighbors. I see Mrs. Chen in the lobby and ask if she's okay, if anything strange happened a few nights ago. She looks at me with concern and says everything is fine, asks if I'm feeling well. I assure her I am. But every night, when the moon rises, I stand at my window and watch the courtyard. I'm waiting for the shadow to return. Waiting for another glimpse of whatever future awaits me. The future where I wear a long coat and climb walls that shouldn't be climbed and say goodbye to places I've lived. The future where I warn myself not to trust them. But who are they? I examine my life for threats, for people who might betray me, for dangers lurking in ordinary moments. I find nothing. My life is mundane, unremarkable. I have acquaintances but no enemies. No one who would warrant a warning shouted across time. Unless the warning isn't about now. Unless it's about later, about some future choice or trust that I haven't yet had the opportunity to make. A week passes. 2 weeks. The moon wanes and then begins to wax again. I find myself becoming paranoid, questioning everything. When my landlord mentions they'll need to inspect the apartment, I wonder if I should trust them. When a coworker invites me to dinner, I decline, remembering the warning. When my doctor's office calls to schedule a routine checkup, I hang up without making an appointment. I'm isolating myself, I realize. Letting a 3-word warning from a shadow destroy my ability to function normally. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the future I saw was one where I let fear consume me, where I withdrew from everyone and everything until I became that hollow figure in the long coat, visiting empty courtyards in the middle of the night. Maybe the warning wasn't about other people. Maybe it was about myself. On the night of the next full moon, I make a decision. I won't wait at the window. I won't watch for shadows. Instead, I'll go down to the courtyard. I'll stand where the shadow stood, and I'll see if the past can see the future as clearly as the future can see the past. At 2:47 a.m., the same time I first saw the shadow, I take the elevator down to the ground floor. I'm wearing my pajamas and a robe over them. Nothing like the long coat from the vision, but it's the best I can do. The building is silent around me. Everyone asleep in their separate boxes, dreaming their separate dreams. I step out into the courtyard. The moonlight is bright and cold, casting everything in stark relief. I walk to the fountain and stand where I saw the shadow stand. I look up at my windows, 4 floors above, and I see myself standing there looking down. A pale figure framed in glass, hand raised as if in greeting or warning. I raise my own hand in response, and the figure in the window does the same. We mirror each other across the vertical distance, past and future observing one another across the narrow space of a courtyard. But then I notice something. The figure in the window is wearing different clothes. Not pajamas and a robe, but something dark. Something that could be a long coat. I look down at myself, confused. I'm still wearing what I put on. But when I look back at the window, the figure is clearer now. It's definitely wearing a coat, and it's not moving the way I'm moving. It's independent, separate, its own entity. It's the shadow, but with form. It's what the shadow becomes when given substance and solidity. It's the future version of me, and it's standing in my window right now, looking down at the past version standing in the courtyard. I feel suddenly dizzy, caught in a loop of causality that folds back on itself. I saw the shadow because I came down to see it, and I came down because I saw the shadow. Cause and effect tangled together, inseparable. The figure in the window leans forward, presses both hands against the glass. Its mouth moves, forming words I can't hear but can somehow understand. Don't trust them. Don't trust anyone, not even yourself. And then it's gone. The window is empty. I'm alone in the courtyard, shivering in the cold moonlight, with more questions than answers. I return to my apartment. The window where I saw the figure standing shows no sign of disturbance. No handprints. No evidence that anyone was there. But when I check my phone, there's a message waiting. It was sent 10 minutes ago, while I was down in the courtyard. It's from my own number, from my own phone, which is right here in my hand. The message is simple. It begins tomorrow. I stare at the message for a long time. Tomorrow. What begins tomorrow? And how did I send myself a message that I didn't send? The answer, I realize, is the same as it's always been. Time isn't as linear as we believe. The future bleeds into the present, casting shadows backward, sending warnings and messages and handprints on glass. And sometimes we receive those warnings and act on them, creating the very future we're trying to avoid. I think about the figure in the coat, climbing walls, visiting windows, warning its past self not to trust. That's what I'll become, isn't it? The person who trusted the warning so completely that I trusted nothing else. The person who isolated themselves so thoroughly that they became a shadow. Substantial only in reflection and memory. Unless I choose differently, I delete the message. I open my curtains wide, letting the moonlight flood my apartment. And I make a decision. Whatever begins tomorrow, I'll face it. I'll trust or distrust based on evidence and judgment, not on warnings from shadows and texts from myself. Because the future isn't fixed. The shadow showed me one possibility, one path. But paths can be changed. Futures can be rewritten. The moon shines on, indifferent and bright. The courtyard below remains empty. And I stand at my window, casting my own shadow across the floor, perfectly normal and perfectly present. If a future version of me is watching from somewhere in time, I want them to see this moment. The moment I chose not to become the shadow. The moment I decided that trust, despite its risks, is better than the isolation that comes from fear. Tomorrow will come, with whatever it brings, and I'll face it as myself, not as a warning, not as a shadow, but as a person who chooses hope over fear, connection over isolation, trust over suspicion. The moon begins to set. Dawn is coming, and I'm still here, still whole, still choosing. Still casting my own shadow for now. Story 5. I signed on to the Persephone on a Tuesday in March, replacing a crew member who had quit without explanation after only 2 days at sea. The shipping company was desperate enough not to ask too many questions about my sparse resume, and I was desperate enough for work not to wonder why the position had opened up so suddenly. The Persephone was a cargo vessel, old but functional, hauling containers across the Pacific. 28 days at sea, then a week in port, then out again. The pay was decent. The work was straightforward. Nothing about the job posting suggested anything unusual. The first thing I noticed when I boarded was how quiet everyone was. Not the comfortable quiet of people who work well together, but the tense silence of people who are listening for something. The crew barely acknowledged me. A few nods, a grunt of greeting from the first mate. Then they returned to their tasks, their eyes constantly flicking toward the water. My bunk was in the lower deck, sharing space with 5 other crew members. The man whose bed I'd inherited had left behind a journal, shoved under the mattress. I found it my first night while trying to get comfortable on the thin bedding. The entries were frantic, barely legible. They spoke of sounds in the water, of shapes moving beneath the ship, of dreams that felt more real than waking. The final entry was dated 2 days before I'd arrived. I can't stay here anymore. It's calling me. Every night, louder. If I don't leave now, I'll go to it willingly. Tell my family I'm sorry. I should have taken it as a warning. Instead, I convinced myself it was sea madness. That can happen on long voyages. Isolation and monotony creating phantoms where none exist. I tucked the journal back under the mattress and tried to sleep. That first night, I heard it. A sound like singing, rising from deep below the ship. Not music, exactly. More like a vibration that happened to create something resembling melody. It resonated through the hull, through my bunk, through my bones. I felt it more than heard it. I lay awake for hours, listening. The sound would swell and fade, like breathing. Like something huge and alive, keeping pace with our ship, following us through the dark water. At breakfast, I asked about it. The crew's reaction was immediate. Forks froze midway to mouths. Eyes locked on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. The first mate, a weathered man named Harrison, slowly set down his coffee. "What did you hear?" he asked. "Singing. Or something like singing. Coming from below." The cook, an older woman named Maria, crossed herself. One of the deck hands. A young guy named Chen pushed his plate away, his appetite apparently gone. "That's the calling," Harrison said finally. "It's why Rodriguez left. Why 3 others quit before him. We all hear it, but some people hear it differently, more clearly. For them, it becomes unbearable. What is it? No one knows. Whales, maybe. Or the ship's hull settling. Or our minds playing tricks. But his eyes said he didn't believe any of those explanations. Or it's what it sounds like, Maria said quietly. Something calling us. Don't listen to superstition. Harrison snapped, but there was no conviction in his voice. Just do your job. Keep your head down. And don't spend too much time looking at the water. But how could I not look? We were surrounded by water. The Pacific stretched in every direction, endlessly blue by day, impenetrably black by night, and something was in that water. I could feel it watching us, keeping pace, waiting. The calling came every night, sometimes barely audible, sometimes so loud it seemed impossible the entire ship wasn't vibrating with it. I asked my bunkmates if they heard it too. Most ignored the question. One, a man named Peterson who'd been on the Persephone for 3 years, finally answered. "You learn to tune it out," he said, "or it drives you crazy. Your choice." "What is it calling for?" "Use," he said simply, then rolled over and refused to say more. By the 3rd night, I was dreaming of the water. Deep water, colder and darker than anything I'd experienced. In my dreams, I swam down towards something that waited in the deepest trench. I couldn't see it clearly. My dream self's eyes weren't built for that much pressure, that much darkness. But I could sense its size, its age, its hunger. I woke gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat, the calling still echoing in my ears. But this time I understood some of it, not words exactly, but meaning. Come down, come home, come deeper. The crew was getting twitchy. Small arguments erupted over nothing. People snapped at each other, then apologized, then snapped again. We moved through our duties like automatons, all of us listening, always listening, for that sound from below. On the fifth night, I went up on deck during my off shift. I needed air, needed to see the horizon, needed to remember that the world was bigger than this ship and its invisible pursuer. Chen was there, standing at the rail, staring into the water. He didn't acknowledge me when I approached. His eyes were unfocused, his body swaying slightly, as if in time to music I couldn't quite hear. "Chen," I said. He blinked slowly, like someone waking from a dream. "It's beautiful down there," he whispered. "I can see it now. The lights, the structures, the city beneath the waves. There's no city." "Chen," stepped back from the rail. "You don't understand. It's been there forever, longer than us, longer than anything. And it's lonely, so lonely. It needs us. It's calling us home." He put one foot on the lower rail, preparing to climb over. I grabbed his arm, pulling him back. He fought me, surprising me with his strength, his desperation. We struggled, and I was acutely aware of how close we were to the edge, how easy it would be for both of us to go over. "Siege!" I shouted his name, trying to break through whatever had taken hold of him. The sound of running feet. Harrison and two others arrived, helping me pull Chen away from the rail. He collapsed onto the deck, sobbing. "I could see it," he kept saying. "I could see where we're supposed to go. Why are you keeping me from it? Why won't you let me go home?" They took him to the medical bay, sedated him. Harrison assigned someone to watch him at all times, but we all knew it was only a matter of time. The calling had gotten into Chen's head, and once it was in, it didn't leave. "This is the worst voyage yet," Maria told me later. She was making soup, her hands moving with practiced efficiency, but her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "It's getting stronger, more persistent. Usually it comes and goes, but this time it's constant. Like whatever's down there has woken up fully and won't be ignored anymore." "You really believe there's something down there?" "I've been sailing for 30 years. I've seen things that would make you question everything you think you know about the ocean. The deep places aren't empty. They're full of life we can't imagine, can't understand. And sometimes that life notices us, becomes interested in us." She stirred the soup, her expression distant. "Ships disappear all the time. They blame storms, equipment failure, human error. But some of them are called down. The crew hears the singing, and one by one, they go over the side, willingly, joyfully, until there's no one left to steer. And the ship drifts empty until it sinks from neglect or collides with something. That's insane. Is it? You've heard it. You've felt it. Tell me honestly, haven't you thought about going down there, just to see, just to understand?" I had. God help me, I had. Every night, the urge was stronger, to climb over the rail, to let myself sink into that cold darkness, to find the source of the calling and finally understand what it wanted. We were 12 days from port when I saw it. I was on night watch, scanning the water out of habit more than any real expectation of seeing something. The moon was full, casting silver light across the waves. And in that light, I saw something break the surface. Not a whale, not a shark, nothing I could name or categorize. It was huge. That was my first thought. Impossibly huge. Only a portion of it broke the surface. Something that might have been a limb or a tentacle, or something for which we have no words. And even that fragment was longer than our ship. The skin was pale, almost luminescent, covered in patterns that might have been natural coloration or might have been something else. Symbols, writing, communication. It stayed on the surface for perhaps 30 seconds. Long enough for me to see how it moved. Not like a creature struggling against the water, but like something that was the water, that had lived in it so long it had become indistinguishable from its environment. Long enough for me to understand that we were not being followed. We were being studied, evaluated, selected. Then it slipped beneath the waves with barely a ripple, and I was alone again on the deck, shaking, questioning whether I'd really seen anything at all. But the calling was louder that night. So loud I couldn't tune it out, couldn't pretend it was anything other than what it was. A voice, multiple voices. An entire civilization beneath the waves, calling to the surface world, inviting us down, promising wonders and horrors in equal measure. I found myself at the rail. I don't remember walking there. One moment I was in my bunk, trying to sleep through the calling. The next, I was standing where Chen had stood, looking into water that seemed to glow from within, as if the depths were lit by cold fire. "Come down," the calling said, and this time I understood every nuance. Come down and see. Come down and know. Come down and become what you were always meant to be. The water looked welcoming, not cold, not threatening, just infinite and accepting, ready to embrace me, to pull me down to whatever waited in the deepest places. I put my hand on the rail. "Don't." Harrison's voice behind me, quiet but firm. I turned to find him standing a few feet away, not approaching, just present. "I see you there most nights," he said, standing at the rail, getting closer and closer to going over. "You want to know what's down there? What's calling us? Don't you? Every second of every day. I've been sailing these routes for 15 years, fighting this urge for 15 years. You know what I've learned?" He moved closer, his face haggard in the moonlight. "It doesn't matter what's down there. It doesn't matter if it's intelligent or just instinct. If it means us harm or genuinely wants to welcome us. What matters is that we're not built for that world. We're surface creatures, air breathers. The deep places aren't meant for us. Then why does it call us? Maybe it's lonely. Maybe it's curious. Maybe it's hungry. Or maybe it's something else entirely. Something we can't comprehend with our surface, world minds. But giving in won't bring understanding. It'll just bring an end. He was right. I knew he was right. But the calling was so beautiful, so compelling. It promised answers to questions I'd always had but never known how to articulate. Questions about where we came from, what lies beneath, what waits in the dark places of the world. "How do you resist?" I asked. I don't, not really. I just postpone. Tell myself I'll hold out one more day, one more voyage, one more year, and hope that eventually I'll retire, move inland, die in my sleep far from any ocean, die without ever giving in. And if you don't make it, if one night the calling is too strong, he smiled grimly, then at least I'll finally know. That's the worst part. The part of me that wants to give in isn't afraid. It's eager. It thinks going down there will be the best thing that ever happened to me. That we stood together at the rail, two men fighting the same battle, neither of us sure we'd win. Chen went over 3 nights later. Despite the watch, despite the precautions, he found a moment alone and took it. We heard the splash, launched a rescue attempt, but never found him. The ocean had swallowed him completely, leaving only ripples that faded within seconds. The crew was devastated, also terrified. If Chen couldn't resist, Chen, who'd been relatively strong, relatively stable, what chance did any of us have? 16 days to port, Harrison said at the emergency meeting. We can make it 16 more days. We've come too far to give up now. But people were breaking. Peterson started talking to himself, conversations with someone who wasn't there. Maria stopped sleeping, afraid of what she'd see in her dreams. Another deckhand, whose name I never learned, spent his entire shifts laughing quietly to himself, as if at a joke only he could hear. And me, I was drawing. I don't know when it started. I'd wake up to find my hands covered in pencil smudges, my notebook filled with sketches of things I'd never consciously seen. Structures of impossible geometry, creatures that defied taxonomy, landscapes of the deep rendered in painstaking detail. The calling had gotten into my head, into all our heads. We were becoming conduits for whatever lay beneath, channels through which it could express itself, show itself, make itself known to the surface world. On the 20th day, I went down to the engine room. I'm not sure why. I'd been avoiding the lower decks. They felt too close to the water, too vulnerable to what waited below. But something drew me down there, past the sign that said, Terzi Person and LONLY, into the dimly lit maze of machinery and pipes. I found symbols painted on the walls. Fresh paint, still wet. The same symbols I'd been drawing in my notebook. The same patterns I'd seen on the creature's skin when it surfaced. Someone else was feeling the calling. Someone else was becoming a channel. I followed the symbols deeper into the ship, down corridors I didn't know existed, until I reached a bulkhead door that should have been sealed. It stood open. Beyond it, a passage leading down. And from that passage, the calling rose up so loud and clear it was almost like hearing spoken words. Come down. See us. Know us. Become us. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run. But I was so tired of running, so tired of resisting. The calling had become part of me, indistinguishable from my own thoughts. How could I resist what I'd already become? I descended. The passage was narrow, claustrophobic, dripping with condensation. It led to a chamber I didn't recognize, some part of the ship I'd never known existed. Or maybe it wasn't part of the ship at all. Maybe the ship had been breached, and this was something else, something that had grown up from the depths to meet us. The chamber was filled with water. Seawater, cold and dark, rising nearly to the ceiling. And in that water, something moved. Not the huge creature I'd seen on the surface. Something smaller, almost human-sized. It rose from the water slowly, and I saw that it had been human once, or wore the shape of something human. But it had changed. The skin was wrong, too pale, too smooth, more like deep sea fish than person. The eyes were too large, adapted for darkness and pressure. The mouth opened to reveal rows of needle teeth. It looked at me with those impossible eyes, and I heard its voice in my head. You heard us. You came. You're ready. Ready for what? To descend. To transform. To join us in the deep places. We were human once. All of us. We heard the calling and we answered, and the deep changed us, remade us, made us perfect for its environment. Now we call others. Continue the cycle. Build our numbers. You're not real. You're a hallucination. The pressure, the isolation. You know we're real. You've seen us. Drawn us, dreamed us. We're what waits at the end of descent. We're what you'll become if you let yourself fall. Others were rising from the water now. More human, shaped things, all of them transformed, all of them wrong. Some recent changes. I could still see traces of the people they'd been. Others so altered they barely resembled anything from the surface world. Shen, I whispered, recognizing one of them. He smiled, and his teeth had already begun to change. "It doesn't hurt," he said directly into my mind. "The transformation. The deep accepts you, remakes you. You stop needing air, stop needing light. You adapt. And then you can explore places no human has ever seen, know things no human has ever known, and lose everything that makes you human in the process. Humanity is a chrysalis. This is the emergence. This is evolution guided by something older and wiser than random chance." I was backing away toward the passage that had brought me here. The transformed crew members didn't follow. They just watched, patient knowing. "You'll come back," Chen said. "Tonight or tomorrow or the day after. The calling doesn't stop. It only grows stronger. Eventually, everyone answers. Everyone comes down." I ran up the passage, through the engine room, up to the main deck, into open air and sunlight and the comforting noise of the ship's normal operations. But I could still hear them, still feel them below, waiting patiently for my return. Harrison found me sitting on deck, shaking. "You saw them," he said. "It wasn't a question. We have to tell someone. The company, the Coast Guard. Something is. They won't believe us. And if they did, what could they do? Drain the ocean. The deep places are vast. Whatever's down there, whatever's doing this, it's beyond our ability to fight or even fully comprehend. Then what do? We survive. We reach port. We quit. We never go to sea again. We try to live with what we know. Try to ignore the calling that will follow us even on land, and we hope that distance and time will weaken its hold." "Will it?" He didn't answer. "We're 6 days from port now. 6 days of fighting the urge to go below, to descend, to let the transformation begin. I've locked myself in my cabin when I'm not on duty. I've asked others to restrain me if they see me near the rails or heading toward the lower decks. It's not enough. I can feel the calling constantly now. It's not just sound anymore. It's a physical pull, like gravity, drawing me toward the water. My skin itches, as if already anticipating the changes. My dreams are entirely underwater now. I swim through impossible depths, breathing liquid, at home in pressure that should crush me. Half the crew is gone. Over the side or down into the lower decks, or simply disappeared in the night. Those who remain are barely holding on. We're running the ship with a skeleton crew, all of us exhausted, all of us fighting the same battle. Harrison comes to check on me every few hours. I appreciate it, though I'm not sure how much longer I can resist. The calling isn't just offering transformation anymore. It's offering peace, an end to the struggle, acceptance, belonging. How long can anyone fight something that promises to end their suffering? I'm writing this as a warning, as a record, as a confession. If you're reading this, if you find this journal on an abandoned ship or washed up on some shore, know that the deep places aren't empty. Know that something lives there, something ancient and patient and always hungry for new members of its transformed family. Know that the ocean calls to us. It has always called to us. And some of us, despite everything, will always answer. I can hear it now, louder than ever. Beautiful and terrible and utterly compelling. The water looks so inviting tonight, so peaceful. Harrison just left my cabin. He locked the door from the outside, said he'd do the same for anyone who asked. We're imprisoning each other now, for each other's sake, hoping the locks will hold better than our willpower. But I have the key. I palmed it when he wasn't looking. My hands knew what to do even before my conscious mind decided. That's how deep the calling has gotten. It's operating through me, making decisions, guiding actions. I should throw the key away. Slide it under the door where I can't reach it. But I'm holding it instead, feeling its weight, knowing that at any moment I could unlock this door and walk to the rail and finally give in. 4 days to port. 96 hours. 5,760 minutes. I'm counting each one, trying to make it through, trying to outlast the calling. Maria is gone. I saw her go. We were on deck together during the evening shift, and she just stopped mid-sentence, looked at the water, and smiled. The most peaceful smile I've ever seen on a human face. Then she climbed over the rail and dropped into the dark water without a sound. I ran to look, but she was already gone. Not struggling, not calling for help, just sinking peacefully, her eyes open and calm as she descended. There are 8 of us left, 8 out of an original crew of 32. The Persephone is a ghost ship with a skeleton crew, lurching toward port through water that grows darker and more threatening with each passing hour. The transformed ones surface sometimes now. We see them in the ship's wake, keeping pace effortlessly. They wave to us, call out names. Chen appears most often, his face barely recognizable anymore, his body adapted for depths that would crush normal humans. He seems happy. That's the worst part. They all seem genuinely happy, as if the transformation is exactly what they needed. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones suffering, clinging to a humanity that was always meant to be temporary. Maybe they've found what we're all looking for. Purpose, belonging, a place where we truly fit. I'm thinking like them now. I can hear how dangerous these thoughts are, but I can't stop having them. The calling has gotten so deep inside me that I'm not sure where it ends and I begin. Peterson killed himself 2 hours ago. Slit his wrists in the bathroom, left a note that said simply, "I won't go into the water. This is the only way out I have left." At least he had that choice. At least he could find a different ending. I'm not sure I'm strong enough for that. 3 days to port. Harrison has stopped sleeping entirely. He just sits in the bridge, steering, his eyes bloodshot and wild, refusing to let anyone relieve him. He doesn't trust any of us anymore. Doesn't trust himself. We're all potential victims of the calling, all possible traitors to the surface world. I tried to sleep, but found myself sleepwalking. I woke up standing on the lower deck, my hands on a bulkhead door, trying to open it. Trying to return to that chamber, to the transformed ones who wait in the flooded spaces below. Harrison found me there, led me back to my cabin, locked me in again. But I still have the key. I'm looking at it now. This small piece of metal that represents the difference between captivity and freedom, between resistance and surrender. It would be so easy to use it. So easy to end this struggle. The dreams are constant now. Even when I'm awake, I'm dreaming. I see the deep places laid out before me like a map. Trenches that drop miles below the surface. Volcanic vents where strange life thrives in superheated water. Caves that twist through the ocean floor, leading to chambers where the ancient ones wait. The first transformed. The ones who began this cycle millennia ago. They show me their history through the dreams. They were surface dwellers once, like us. Different species, different eras, but always the same story. The calling reaches up from the depths. Some answer. They change. They call others. The cycle continues, spreading slowly through the ages, converting the surface world one sailor, one swimmer, one curious fool at a time. And what do they become? The dreams show me that too. Creatures perfectly adapted to the deep, ageless or nearly so. Capable of diving to depths that would obliterate normal flesh. Part of a community that spans the entire ocean, connected through the calling, sharing thoughts and experiences across thousands of miles. It's not a bad life. That's the seductive part. They're not suffering. They're not trapped. They've just changed, adapted, become something new. Is that really so terrible? Yes, the human part of me screams yes. Humanity is worth preserving. Our form, our thoughts, our culture, these things matter. Surrendering them is a kind of death, even if something else emerges on the other side. But the part of me that hears the calling isn't sure anymore. It whispers that change is natural. That evolution is inevitable. That clinging to what we are prevents us from becoming what we could be. 2 days to port. The Persephone is barely functional. Systems are failing. The crew that remains, 5 of us now, can barely keep the ship moving. We're running on fumes and desperation, racing toward a finish line that seems to recede with every hour. Harrison collapsed this morning. Exhaustion finally overcame him. They took him to the medical bay, but there's no one left who knows how to treat him properly. No one with the training or the mental clarity to do more than keep him hydrated and hope he wakes up. That leaves 4 of us to run the ship. 4 people who are all fighting the same battle, all losing in different ways. I saw myself in a mirror today and barely recognized the face looking back. My eyes are too large. My skin is too pale. Am I already changing? Is the transformation beginning even without my submersion? Or am I just seeing what I expect to see, projecting my fears onto my reflection? I don't know anymore. I don't know what's real and what's the calling shaping my perception. The line between truth and hallucination has become impossibly thin. 1 day to port, 24 hours. We're close enough that we should be able to see land soon, feel the continental shelf beneath us, know that we're approaching salvation. But the calling is loudest here, right on the edge of safety, when we're so close to escaping. It's as if whatever lives in the deep knows this is its last chance, and it's pulling at us with everything it has. The remaining crew members are locked in their cabins. We decided together, all of us agreeing that we needed to be restrained for these final hours. We locked each other in, scattered the keys, removed any possibility of opening the doors until we reach port and help arrives. But I still have my key. I've always had it, hidden it, kept it. Some part of me always knew I would need an escape route. I'm sitting on my bunk, key in hand, listening to the calling reach a crescendo. It's not gentle anymore, not seductive. It's demanding, insistent, angry that I've resisted this long. The ship is silent except for the engine's drone and the water moving past the hull. Everyone else is locked away, fighting their private battles. I'm alone with my choice. I could wait, endure 1 more day. Let the rescue team find me in the morning, delirious maybe, changed perhaps, but alive and human and saved. Or I could use the key. Walk to the rail 1 final time. Let myself fall into water that has been calling me for 28 days. Find out what waits in the depths. Learn if the transformation is really as peaceful as the dreams promise. My hand is moving, unlocking the door. My feet are carrying me through the corridor, up to the deck, into the night air that tastes of salt and endings. The water is black, completely black, but I can see light beneath it. Not sunlight, something else. The bioluminescence of deep sea creatures, or the glow of the transformed ones waiting to welcome me. Or something stranger still, beyond my capacity to name or understand. The calling is so loud now it's not sound anymore. It's vibration, it's gravity. It's destiny. It fills every particle of my being, leaving no room for doubt or fear or humanity. I put my hands on the rail. Don't. I turn. Harrison is there, barely standing, leaning against the wall for support. He must have woken up. Must have found the strength to escape the medical bay. Must have known, somehow, that I would come here. We're almost there, he says. His voice is barely a whisper. A few more hours. You can make it? Can I? Can any of us? Or are we just postponing the inevitable? I don't know. But I know that if you go over now, you'll never find out if you could have resisted. You'll never know if you were stronger than the calling. What if I'm not? What if going over is the strong choice? What if fighting this is just fear masquerading as courage? He has no answer for that. He's asking himself the same questions. We all are. We stand together at the rail, two broken men on a broken ship, so close to salvation or damnation that we can taste both. Below us, the transformed ones surface. Dozens of them, all watching, all waiting. Some are recent. I can still see traces of the people they were. Others are ancient, so changed they're barely recognizable as anything that was ever human. Chen is there. Maria. Peterson, somehow, though I'd been sure he died by his own hand. Perhaps he had, and the deep had reclaimed him anyway. Perhaps death itself is no escape from the calling. They don't speak, don't gesture. They just float in the dark water, patient, knowing that time is on their side, knowing that eventually everyone answers. Everyone descends, everyone transforms. What do? I ask Harrison. We survive. One more night, one more hour, one more minute. We survive until we can't anymore. It's not much of a plan, but it's all we have. The sun is rising. I can see it on the horizon. The first light I've seen in weeks that wasn't artificial, that wasn't filtered through the calling's influence. Real sunlight, clean and pure and entirely of the surface world. And there, in the distance, I can see land, the port we've been fighting to reach. Buildings and docks, and people who have never heard the calling, who live their entire lives without knowing what waits in the deep places. We made it. Against everything. Against the calling and the transformation and our own traitorous urges. We made it. The transformed ones are sinking back into the deep. Disappointed, perhaps. Or maybe just patient. They have time. All the time in the world. The ocean isn't going anywhere. The calling will continue. Other ships will pass overhead. Other sailors will hear the song. Some will resist, as we did. Some will succumb. The cycle continues as it has for millennia, as it will for millennia to come. Harrison and I watched the sun rise together, neither of us speaking. What is there to say? We survived, but we're not unchanged. The calling is still in us. Will always be in us, fainter on land, perhaps, but never fully silent. We'll hear it in our dreams, in the sound of waves, in any water deep enough to hide secrets. We can never go to sea again, never swim in the ocean, never even live too close to the coast, lest the calling grow strong enough to pull us back. And still, despite everything, part of me wonders if we made the right choice. Part of me will always wonder what waited in those depths, what I could have become, what wonders and horrors I missed by clinging to my humanity. That doubt is the calling's final gift. Even in victory, it leaves us questioning. Even in escape, it marks us forever. The rescue team is approaching. I can hear their boat's engine, see the official markings on its hull. They'll board the Persephone, find 5 traumatized survivors and 27 missing crew members, and demand explanations we can't give. What will we tell them? The truth. They'll think we're insane, declare us unfit for duty, perhaps commit us to institutions where doctors will try to fix what isn't broken, just changed. Or will lie, blame storms, equipment failures, say the crew went overboard in accidents we couldn't prevent. They'll investigate, find nothing conclusive, file a report that raises more questions than it answers. Either way, we'll be marked. Survivors of the Persephone, the ghost ship that came to port with most of its crew missing. People will whisper about us, wonder. Some will believe. Most won't. And we'll live with the knowledge that something vast and ancient and hungry waits beneath the waves, calling eternally for those who will listen. I'm watching the transformed ones descend into darkness, their pale forms growing fainter, until they vanish completely. Chen waves once before he disappears. A farewell, or an invitation, or a promise that we'll meet again when the calling finally becomes too strong to resist, and I return to finish what I started. Harrison is crying, silent tears running down his weathered face. I don't know if they're tears of relief or grief, or some emotion for which we have no name. Maybe all three. The rescue boat is alongside now. Professional voices calling out, hands reaching to help us aboard. A return to the normal world, to safety. To lives that will never feel quite safe again. I take one last look at the water. Still dark, still infinite, still full of secrets, still calling. I always will be. And with that, our time tonight comes to an end. To everyone who stayed until the very last moment, thank you, truly. Having you here, sharing these shadows, makes the darkness feel a little less empty. I'm grateful you chose to spend a piece of your night here with me. I hope these stories brought you that quiet shiver, the kind that makes you feel alive. There's something special about this, all of us, connected by the love of a good story whispered in the dark. I'll be back soon with more echoes from the void, more mysteries waiting to be told. Until then, rest well, sleep deeply, and if you hear footsteps that shouldn't be there, just remember, they're only stories. Oh, and before you drift off, if you enjoyed our time together, a like and a subscribe will make sure we meet again, somewhere in the dark. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.